During most of 1980, President Jimmy Carter's re-election seemed likely. Though his record was mixed and his administration beset by problems, voters found his integrity and personal commitment appealing. But events largely beyond his control quickly weakened his position.
I think Jimmy Carter must be one of the most unlucky presidents in our modern history. He inherited an enormous economic problem with the oil crisis, the invasion of Afghanistan, and then, of course, most of all, you had the Iranian crisis.
The U.S. Embassy in Tehran has been invaded and occupied by Iranian students,
in which our diplomats were essentially imprisoned, and we were helpless.
Carter's Republican opponent in the 1980 presidential campaign was Ronald Reagan, who had by now served 2 terms as governor of California.
Ronald Reagan's philosophy, I wouldn't call it a bumper sticker mentality, but it was pretty simple. Government is a problem, not the solution.
We have inflation because the government is living too well.
Reagan comes along at an interesting time. So some of that backlash that we've talked about, clearly sentiment that is percolating in huge sectors of the American populace and the electorate. He was able to identify those particular points that a lot of Americans say, well, yeah, he's really right. Isn't government too big? He's a folksy fellow. He talked common talk.
A recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose yours.
Bottom line, he's a populist president with a populist message that resonates.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
A lot of Americans liked what they heard and thought that, well, maybe this is a fellow who we can get behind.
I like the way he talked about the pride in America and America being good. He didn't have any problem communicating to people sort of a vision and a real drive and a passion for being American. I thought that was very important.
He had a nice, smiling, pleasant personality. I liked him. I just, the way he acted.
But I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
On November 4th, 1980, voters went to the polls and elected Ronald Reagan by a landslide as the 40th President of the United States. His election represented a major shift in the political landscape.
The significance of his success was quite dramatic for conservatives. Reagan made a statement to a group of conservatives following his electoral win where he said, "Our time has come. Our moment has arrived."
In addition to winning the presidency, the Republican Party picked up seats in both houses of Congress and gained control of the Senate. This would help Reagan enormously to push through some of the principal initiatives of his agenda.
I shall ask for a 10% reduction across the board in personal income tax rates.
What he did succeed in doing, it seems to me, is in promoting these ideas, in working and attacking the margins of the welfare state, restricting it, cutting back. So that was, from his perspective, an accomplishment. And the greatest accomplishment, I'm sure, from his perspective, was he enormously increased military expenditures. In fact, that's why he had such a hard time balancing the budget, that and tax cuts for the rich.
In 1984, Ronald Reagan was re-elected in yet another landslide victory. Despite scandals and blunders, Reagan continued to remain popular throughout his presidency, leading pundits to dub him the Teflon president.
I will keep America moving forward.
In 1988, Reagan's vice president, George H.W. Bush, was elected to succeed him, ensuring that the Reagan legacy would remain intact.
The Reagan Revolution is often used to describe the triumph of conservatism, of unabashed, open, unrestricted conservatism. Even there, I'd say it's a partial revolution.
He didn't shave social spending to the extent that he said he was going to be. In fact, there are parts of the agenda, the military agenda, and the heating up of the Cold War where expenditures rise dramatically. So the role of government, but in a different form, is actually expanding tremendously. But I think the messages that he's conveying, the ideas that he wanted to bring to his policy platform, those are the things that we talk about the Reagan Revolution.
What he did succeed in doing was making conservatism not only respectable, but even the dominant rhetoric in American politics. Even liberals had to respond to that after the Reagan years.